All right, good afternoon. I am Aaron Heiser, Maker's Leather Supply, and this is video 3 of making the roll top rucksack bag. There should be video 3. In this video, we're going to start putting leather and canvas together. The last video, we did the preparation of the pocket zippers, and on this video, we will actually cut a piece that goes behind all this that will be the big pocket. But it goes on as all these other pieces are going on too. This piece is just stuck down there. This is how we left it in the last video. In the first video, I did go ahead and skive this one right here. It's skived down about a ½ inch on 3 sides of it, and then on the 4th side, one of the long sides, it's skived down about 3/4 of an inch, maybe even a little bit more. Basically, you're just skiving it down because what you need to do is fold that over. And I'm going to tape it down once I do. In this video, really all we're going to need is the pieces we had already cut out. And then I've got some gray canvas here. This will be inside my pocket, and then later on it will also be my bag liner out of this gray canvas. I'm using gray because it's just a good color that'll kind of match with all these and go along with them, but yet not, not overpower them or anything. I actually considered making it bright orange as a safety thing where you could pull the liner out of the bag and have a nice bright orange thing, let's say you were backpacking and lost. But anyway, people already think I'm crazy enough. I probably don't need it. So, all right, so I'm going to take and I'm going to put some double-sided tape along that top edge there and fold it over and stick it down. The radio's been full of great tunes today. Wow, I cut that piece of tape exactly the length it needed to be. Like, I tell you what, I need to go buy me a lottery ticket. I always cut them an inch too long or an inch too short, but never, ever, ever exactly where I want them. All right. Just tells me after this bag's done, I should keep on making stuff today. Janie probably disagrees because she's at home, probably doing chores without me. All right, so I'm just folding it over right at the edge of the skive there and pinching it down, getting that tape good and stuck. And I'm going to go over to the sewing machine, and this will have 2 lines sewn on it. And the first line I'm going to sew is not the one closest to the edge, but the next one down. Okay, the one closest to the edge is actually going to sew it to the canvas here, okay? But I'm going to sew another line, probably 3/8 of an inch from the edge. I'll sew another line, and all that's going to do is tack that fold line down. But then when I sew it to the canvas itself, it'll have a really nice, look like a double stitch line there. So that'll be really nice. I'm going to pause the video. I'll go over to the sewing machine and sew that down right quick, and I'll be right back. All right, got that line sewn right there. Now I need to cut out my piece for that will be my pocket strip. And what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to put it behind this piece, and where it'll be attached by the same line that sews this to this. And then at the top, I'm just going to add another stitch line about 1.5 inches above these zipper pieces here. Okay? And yeah. That's all I'm going to do to attach it. Again, that saves a lot of headache of building individual pockets that fit inside the bag and sew down to this zipper. That's what I did with the last bag, and I swear it took me a ½ a day just to figure that part out and do it, and I still wasn't happy with it once it was done. So I think this will be a great substitute. And yeah, and you don't have to make it all the way across. You could do like a square, or whatever. You just need to make sure that it's sewn down on all sides. Otherwise, it's not a pocket. It's just a way to reach your hand into the bag, which wouldn't be a problem, except for this bag will be lined, so you wouldn't actually be reaching into the contents of the bag. You'd just be reaching into the liner of the bag, if that makes any sense at all, because now I'm confused. Uh, so anyway, what I'm going to do is cut me out a little bit of this gray canvas here. All right, to make me a nice little pocket area. And I'm actually kind of liking the idea of just doing a giant square, you know, like say there, instead of doing it all the way across and then your keys possibly sliding all the way around to the side of the bag. So, as usual, we're going to change my design on the fly. Again, you know, it doesn't change anything for you. The pattern remains the same. So, I'm going to pause this and grab, I've got a giant square that I can help cut out a nice big square piece out of. All right, I believe this is another quilting type tool. It's just a giant square with lots of measurements on it. But I use it like it's a giant square. And I just throw it down, and if I need to measure 6 inches by 6 inches, then that's what I do. This one, I think we'll do 12 by 12, but let's triple check that and make sure. Yeah, we'll just go ahead and do 12 by 12. It'll be fine. I'd rather have too much pocket than not enough. I want to be able to stuff my keys and my phone and whatever else inside there. All right, giant piece of gray canvas here. It's going to be difficult to get it all on camera. The reason I like this square, though, is like I said, I can put it right up here. I already know that's a 12-inch square, and so actually it's a little bit more. It's like 12 and a half, but whatever. It's a square. That's what matters. Ah, there's my square. Fold this out of the way for use in a little bit. Again, that will be my liner. We're going to build a whole separate liner, kind of like how we did the big tote, and just sew the whole dang thing inside the bag when it's done. All right. So, that goes there. All right, I'm going to turn this thing over and kind of mark where I want this square to be so that I can stick it on there well. All right, and it doesn't have to be exactly anything, but I do caution you that maybe, you know, it needs to be centered in between the left and the right here. And then top and bottom don't really matter as much. But if your stitch line's way the heck over here, and then, you know, another one like up against the zipper, then you're going to be not looking so pretty. Turn this thing over so I can actually see my measurements. 2 inches there. I do have to keep in mind this thing has a border on one side that's about a 1/2 inch wide. So when I use it, I have to keep in mind that, you know, don't look at that area. Only look at the marked area for the squares, and that'll give me a better idea of where my actual area of usage is. So there's 1 2 inches there, 1 2 inches there, and that's going to be minus that border. That would be centered right there. So I need to find a pencil. I don't want to mark on this with a pen or a marker for fear that it would go through. So let me go find a pencil. All right, found me a pencil. I'm triple checking my measurements here. I've got it about 2 inches from the bottom of the zipper down, which leaves it about 3 inches from the top of the zipper up. And I'm just going to pencil me in a little line here so that I'll know where to stick the gray. Now, again, I've got this little border here, so I'm going to flip this thing around so that I can go right up against it and still have my same measurements for the other side. Sorry, I don't mean to get my head in the way there. And again, where you stick it isn't as important as when I turn it over. When I mark my stitch lines, now those have to be dead on accurate. Otherwise, it's going to look kind of funny. And we don't want that, do we? All right, I'm going to use some double-sided tape, and I'm going to stick this sucker down to here, and then all of our further work will be from the other side, okay? All right. Here we go. Tape is in place. Okay. So I'm just going to stick this down within my mark lines there. Yeah, I'm liking this a lot more than I did the other one. All right. And the cool news is I can even see it through the bag when I hold it up to the light. So that helps a lot too. All right, I can see it. I can feel it under there. Like all is good there. But what I want to do is I'm going to sew up this side, across this side, and then back down this side. All right. And then I'll come back, I'll put my leather piece on here and sew all the way across there. And then you won't have any start and stop stitch areas. It'll just be a sew line that disappears behind the leather piece here. Okay. So again, I'll start, down below where the leather is, go up, across, back down, and then I'll come back, I'll put the leather piece on, and I'll just sew across the top of the leather piece. And there it is. It's completely sewn on, and there's not any start and stop points or anything like that. All right. So let me measure or triple check something right quick. Holding it up to the light, my pocket is about 2 inches away from the zippers here. So most of the pocket area is just right here in the middle, which is fine because, again, cell phone, keys, maybe a thing of sunscreen, that's all I need to hold. So I need to mark me a stitch line. This is a waxed canvas, so my scratch-all will leave enough of a mark for me to see when I go to sew this thing down. All right, but what I need to do is figure out a really nice, even way to measure it on all sides. So let me get my big thingy-majig here. All right, I do this a lot. I'm going to stack rulers, okay? And I'm going to take my 2-inch ruler and my 6-inch ruler and put them next to each other, and I can tell that I have overlapped the gray pocket on the back side there. I'll line it up with the side of the canvas so that it's nice and square with everything, and I'm just going to draw me a little line, and I'll start about 1.5 inches above the zipper, which is marked the 16 inches from the base of the bag here. Okay. And there it is. You can lightly see my scribed line there. That's all I need. I just need a little bit to see it so that I can sew it. All right, same thing over here. I'm going to line up the bottom. I'll go up to my 16th inch, draw a line down. There should be. Now I'm just going to connect the dots on the top here. I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll make sure that when I do that, that's also nice and square with the top of the bag to make sure that this isn't a, whomper jawed. That's a word, right? That's what we use in Texas. So there should be. There's my stitch lines. Again, I'm going to walk over to the sewing machine. I'm going to start down here, go up to that corner, across to that corner, back down, and I'll stop. I may round them just a little bit right there in the corners, as opposed to, trying to make a 90-degree corner, just because I think it might look a little bit better to have it a tiny bit rounded. just because these are rounded. All these other corners are rounded, so to have a big square, just not as good. So I'll tell you what, it's going to be a lot of corner there. That's too much. I'm going to find me something round right quick that's smaller than that, so I can make my rounded little thimble. There we go. And then that previous corner, I can just mark it out with my finger. I can rub that line out, and nobody will see it. So there we go. Up, around that corner, back down, and then we'll put the leather piece on. Promise that's the last time I'll repeat that. Alrighty then. So I sewed up, I sewed across, I sewed back down. I told you I was going to do that. And now I apply this piece. Okay? So all I'm going to do is line it up with the edges of my canvas here, and I'm going to tape it down, and I'm going to sew right across the very top of it so that that one stitch line becomes like a double stitch line. That will complete the bottom of the pocket, and so yeah, you can stick your hand in there and you can see where you would be able to keep your stuff. All right, so some double-sided tape, and do what I do. Sew stuff. All right. Again, I'm going to line it up with the very bottom of the canvas there and the very edges of the canvas there. Stick it down, and this sew line is going to go right across the top. Okay? So I'll be right back once that is complete, and we're going to start making the body of the bag. It's going to be awesome. All right, all that is done. This sucker is now thoroughly sewn together. If you look at the back side, you can see that all four sides of the pocket are sewn down securely. So now I can put stuff inside the pocket and not worry about it coming out. So I'm going to set this piece aside because we're done with it for a minute. And I need to grab my back piece. Okay, this big long leather piece right here. I need it, and I need its pattern. And I need this thingy. All right, so what I need to do is just like I did on the canvas a while ago, I'm going to go ahead and punch my holes in my pattern so that I can mark where this thing is going to go on the back piece. Okay. Where's my magical 1.5 punch? It's magical, truly. All right, seriously, there it is. Whew, sorry, I had one of those moments. So I'm using my 1.5 punch and punching out these areas. And then I'll use my 1-inch punch to get that other little area there that we did. Because again, I'll be using a 1-inch strap and a 1-inch snap to connect to that D-ring that's over on the front of the bag. Okay? Alright, so I will put this back on my leather. And I'll mark where those areas are. Let me get this all squared up so I can make sure I'm good. I'll mark where those areas are, and that'll tell me where to put my strap hanging piece. All right, and I'll just use the scratch awl because, again, we can easily write on this leather with the scratch awl. There we go. Okay, and again, I'm not punching these holes. I just need to know where they need to be so that when I line this bad boy up with it, I know that it's nice and straight and centered and everything I need it to be. Okay? Yeah, but I do need to do some skiving on this bag. All right? See that right there? That needs to be skived. And since designing the bag, I'm going to throw a curveball at you. I need to skive the very top part of this bag too, also about a ½ inch or so. It's going to help with putting the liner in and making sure that there's not any exposed canvas seams that can be seen where they would fray or anything like that. So I'm going to go get my skive on, and when I come back, those areas and that area will be skived. Okay, so those areas have been skived. You can see it there on the edges, and right there on the very top of that piece. I'm going to set this aside right quick because the next thing I really need to do is make a handle for my bag. Okay, just a little something to pick it up with besides the shoulder straps. It just kind of adds to the, the awesomeness of the bag. This one is lined with the elk leather. So what I did is I took a piece of elk, which, if whatever you're making your bag out of, use it if you want to. It's very optional. But I took a piece, this handle is 1 inch wide. I took a piece that was probably 2.5 to 3 inches wide. I'll tell you in a minute. I folded it to the inside, and then I just sewed it to my handle material, which this is 6 to 7 ounce russet tooling leather, and that's what I'm going to be using on this current bag also. Anyway, and that way there's no seams or anything like that you can see because they're up against the handle here. I did the exact same thing on these shoulder straps, and I'll probably do that again. It is a little bit of a pain in the butt, but it sure is, it's a really nice finished looking strap. It looks really good. So, yeah. I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to go get the russet strap that I need, and I'll go ahead and cut out my shoulder straps as well. And then I'm going to cut them really long, and then we'll go over measuring them and everything as we do that part. Be right back. All right. So handles are a bit of a personal preference. It all depends on who you're making your bag for. If it's someone smaller with smaller hands, they may want a smaller handle. Me and my Gorilla Paws, I like a bigger handle. So, like for instance, the handle on this bag from tip to tip is 13 inches. And that is what I will make it on the next bag as well. But again, if I were making it for someone else, I might make it a different size. So I've got my 1 inch strap right here. I'll pick a really nice section of the strap, and I'll use my, let me get my 1 inch punch. I'll use my 1 inch punch. Measure my 13 inches. Excuse me. It's been a long day up here. And go ahead and punch the other side. Now, what I also want to do is go ahead and take my edger and edge the sides of this and burnish them. They don't have to be burnished, but we've talked a million times about professionalism of your project, and the more little details you can do to make it nicer than anyone else's, then the better off you'll be. If you're selling it, it'll bring more money. If you're giving it away, it'll be that much more special. If you're keeping it, that many more people will see how badass your work is. So I'm going to go grab the things I need to edge it and to burnish the edge right quick. Alrighty, so I've got my edger. This is a Ron's round edger number 2. Glides through it like butter. All right. I need to grab my lighter, which is normally in my pocket, but that tells me Janie borrowed it and didn't give it back. Damn it. We're going to set a record for how many times we have to pause this video. I see one on the other side of the bench. Let's see if I can reach it. Barely. Don't try this at home, kids. I am a professional. All right, so shown this on a lot of videos. Take your dauber, take your lighter, melt your dauber. Make it smaller. Get all the little fuzzies off of it. And make it a more manageable size. Even if it's already small, it's still going to have lots of fuzzies and stuff if it's a brand new dauber. So after that, I just knock all the charring off so that it doesn't look like a marshmallow. Keep in mind that stinks when you do that. I mean, it's like burnt carpet. So you may want to do that outside if you live in a small place. So anyway, I've got my indelible burnishing solution. Real quick and easy way to burnish an edge here. And I'm going to put it on the edges. I'll let it set a few seconds, and then I'll just wipe these edges down with my finger, and that will burnish them well enough for this project. They'll be good and smooth, and we'll continue on. It's a real quick way to burnish edges, and it doesn't require this stuff doesn't work off friction, unlike most burnishing solutions. So you don't have to do a bunch of rubbing and stuff. I'm going to put it on here, and then I'm going to use my finger to wipe it off, and then I'm going to use my finger to kind of slick the edge down, and that'll be that. We'll be done with it. So, got it on the edge real nicely. I let it set for a few seconds, kind of soften up the fibers, and then I just take my fingers and I wipe off the excess. And then I wipe that on my bench edge over here. And then once I've got all the excess wiped off, I'm just going to take it and take my fingers, and I'm just going to wipe them down. The secret is you only go one direction. You don't want to wipe back and forth, just one direction. You don't have to use your fingers. You could use a burnishing tool or a wooden tool handle or something like that. But it's real easy to use. I use my fingers just because it proves to people that you could even burnish an edge with your finger. And then once it starts to get kind of tacky, you're done because, again, you don't want to create friction. You just want to smooth that down some. Okay? So now I'm going to wipe it on the other side. Stuff, you do want to be careful with this stuff though, because you don't want to get it all over the natural grain side of the leather. It can leave a stain and darken it a good bit. Generally it goes away, but I have experienced times when it did not. So better safe than sorry. Just don't get it on there. All right. I'll just wipe that side down. Around the corners. There we go. That is good and slick. Now, I want to take some of my elk and I want to cut a piece of this, a piece of it off that's about yay long and about 2.5 to 3 inches wide. And I'm going to fold it over and I'm going to sew it to this, and it'll make it look really, really nice. But I got to figure out how long I need to cut it. All right, so I'm going to take this thing and I'm going to stick it up here where it's going to belong. And I'll just mark where if I sewed a good piece of this on here like the pattern shows, then I'll just mark with my fingernail kind of where I'm gonna be at on it to where the top of it is, and I'll make sure that both those sides, pretty damn close, both those sides are lined up. All right. So from where my fingers are to where my fingers are, that's where we're going to put the folded over elk, and that is 8 3/4 inches. So I'm going to cut me a piece out. I'm going to start with a piece that's 3 inches wide by 8 3/4 inches, and then I'll probably narrow it down. Give me a second to get all that cut out, and we'll do it together. All right, so I cut me a little piece of elk, the 3 inches long. I'll cut it down to about 8 1/2 inches, 8 3/4, somewhere in there. All right, and I'll kind of wrap this around, see how it looks at this size on the handle. But what I'm going to end up doing is skiving it some. Tell you what, instead of using that piece, I'll just use this little scrap. So what I'm doing is just wrapping it around so that the seam is on the back, and then just comparing it to the width of the handle. So like if I put this behind the handle, how much of it would stick out the sides? And honestly, it's about the perfect amount. It's about 1/8 of an inch on each side of it. It looks pretty nice, and even without skiving, it looks really good there. So I think I'll just do it like it is. So I'm going to take some double-sided tape, and I'll just run it right down the center of this piece of elk. I will cut the excess off the ends because it would definitely be seen if I don't, and I don't want it to be seen at all. All right. Get tape off my scissors so that they work. Okay, so I'm just gonna take the back off the tape here and fold the leather over until it meets itself in the middle, and then I'm going to sew it to the strap. Not a hard process at all. Just button the seam up against itself there, pressing it down. There we go. Now all I'm going to do is center that on the strap and tape it one more time, and then I'm just going to sew it. Okay. I'm not going to sew it around. It's hard to describe in words. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sew it. I'll start right here and end right here, and then I'll do the same on the other side. And when I go to sew this to the bag, actually, I'm sorry, I will start back here some. I'll start back here off of the elk, and I'll walk the machine up onto the elk and come down here, and I'll go another 1/2 inch beyond that. And then when I sew this whole strap to this, then I'll make sure that to go over those areas, and it'll look like one continuous seam all the way around the handle. I need another piece of tape. All right, so again, I'm going to stick this right smack in the middle of the handle piece here. I'm going to start my sew line about a ½ inch off of the elk over here, go all the way across and stop it there, and then I'll do the exact same thing over here. I won't do any back stitching or anything like that, because once I sew the handle to this piece, then that'll all hold on just fine. And that's exactly what I want. So yeah. All right, so I'm going to go and do that little stitch. I'll be right back. All right, so that is made. Again, I sewed, a ½ inch or so beyond where the elk is on it. And when I put that on the bag itself, I will line that elk up right with the top of the handle piece here. Let me find this. All right, it is now time to attach this piece to this piece. Real easy to see where it goes. We marked that earlier. So I just need to sew all the way around it, and then I will sew the handle to it as well. Alrighty. So that's the next step. I'm going to tape that down. I'll just tape it on the edges because I've got the pieces that I'm going to have to slide in there later for the back straps and the little closure snap piece there. I'm going to have to wrap this one up pretty quick. My concentration is gone for the day. All right, pull the paper off. Let's stick those two pieces together. Grr. Sometimes that paper doesn't want to come off and the whole piece of tape wants to come off. There we go. A little trick Janie Sue taught me when she was doing a bunch of work with the sticky vinyl stuff. All right, lined up my little holes. Got her all ready to go. I'm going to do one stitch line completely around the edge of this piece. When I come back, we'll place the handle on it and get it ready to sew on. All right, so got that sewn on there, but my sewing machine erased my my lines. So I got to find my original pattern piece. There it is, so that I can mark where my handle's going again. That's the problem with this elk. It's got so much crazy pull up to it that sometimes things disappear on your line when you go to stress the leather a little bit. So I'm just going to take this thing, and it's going to take some working, but I'm going to put the elk right up against the top of the piece on the back of the bag there, and I'll sew this one, and then I'll bend it around and put the other end of it right there and sew it too. But I can't bend it around and put that one down until this one's sewn down really well, because it just doesn't want to bend that much yet. If I work it a little bit, it will. But anyway, that's the next step. That's what we're doing now. So when I come back, the handle will be sewn onto it. All right, so my handle is now on the bag. We're going to wrap this video up, and in the next one, we will put the leather and canvas parts together and start all the final assembly of the bag. It's going to go pretty quick from here on out. A lot of the groundwork is laid. So yeah, it's coming along real nicely, and it's going to be a great project. Always like it when they turn out successful, especially when I'm doing it on a recording. Anyway, again, I'm Aaron Heiser of Maker's Leather Supply, and thanks for watching part 3 of our bag making series on the roll top rucksack. Have a great day.